Doflamingo into Kalgara in OP08. Let's see how this matchup goes. Normally I'm the aggressive deck, but I think in this matchup I'm going to have to take the role of the defensive deck here. We're going to go ahead and start on my second turn going first here. I ended up not hitting record when I needed to, and you'll even notice that my little, I usually have a little card stand out. I didn't have that out either. I'm woefully unprepared for this, and we're going to go ahead and look at it. We looked at a nice top 5. There's a Jinbei and a Weevil. We set the Weevil to be up on top. We've got the Jinbei going next. And then we've got a Gravity Blade as well as a 2K and then another Dofi blocker. So likely what I'll do is be able to flip the Jinbei into play a Perona maybe next turn, and then reset up the top of 5 in my life. I'm trying to look for Jinbeis, trying to look for Weevils, as those are ways for me to get on the board. But again, my role this game is to be the defensive player here. We're going to try to counter out of everything that we can. Opponent's going to go ahead and play an Ohm. Look at the top 5. Try to find a Holy. Finds a Holy. Hopefully bottom deck some other stuff that he definitely wanted to see, because I know from playing Kalgara that you're most likely going to bottom deck things a lot of the time that you really wanted to have on top of your deck. We're going to go ahead and draw a card here. That is the Weevil that we set up on top. We've got a Jinbei on top. Likely what I'm going to do here is swing 8k lead, using 1 to activate effect, and then use that other 1 to play the Perona out, allowing me to stack my top 5 yet again. Look, in this matchup, try not to go for life as much as possible, because Kalgara is going to take his own life, right? That's part of the leader ability. You can attach 1 Dawn to Kalgara, and then when you swing, when you attack, you can play a Shandian, whatever it's called, card from your hand, put it directly into play equal to your Dawn, and then you take the top card of your life and add it to your hand. So Kalgara is going to just slowly take his life away as we get through this game here, so I don't really need to focus him too much. Opponent's going to trigger a Satori off the top of life, discarding another Satori. That's a 2k out of hand here, but my opponent is growing a board. We're going to play that Perona out, and we see another Jinbei here. And now I have to think how I want to what I want to do next turn. I have the Gravity Blade. I'm about to go to 7 Dawn on my next turn. My opponent's board is getting pretty wide, so that Gravity Blade probably needs to be fired off sooner than later. And I think the way we're likely going to set it up here is to have a little bit of a hiatus turn next turn. So we're putting the Jinbei far down enough to be able to put him into play off my 9 Dawn turn, eyeing that 6k Gecko to put right into play. So we're definitely committing this next turn to a Gravity Blade. And the reason I did this is because Kalgara is on his 6 Dawn turn, and typically on a typical 6 Dawn turn for Kalgara is they're going to attach 1 to lead. They're going to swing, put a 6 cost 8k Kalgara into play, and then play a Nolan to gain that life back that they lost from the Kalgara's leader ability. And that would be a lot of pressure, so having a Gravity Blade which bottom decks 2 6 costs in play would be pretty great. Instead, opponent decides to go for a Thunderbolt, trashing the top card of your life. I love to see Kalgara's life go down without me having to pressure it here. And gonna take out my Weevil. He's gonna go ahead and send 5k. He does have 3 5k swings in addition to his leader to send at my board here, so I'm gonna give him one 1k, and then I'm gonna decide not to commit any further into it. I did this to try to stymie potential attacks in my life. He does have 4 Dawn open, so he could just start attaching and swinging heavier. But likely I could have just kept the pudding in hand there if I was going to let the Jinbei go anyways. We end up taking two hits here and pull 2 Kaidos in hand, 2 absolute bricks. I don't think I'm going to have time this game to play out a Kaido. I might have time later if I can't stymie down this board, but my opponent goes in and plays an Omen to Holy again. That is a very wide board, and if I hit him once, all of those Ohms are going to turn on to 6k power, as they are 6ks if your opponent's at 2 or less life. We did set it up in such a way that we're just going to Gravity Blade this turn. Likely what we're going to do is just try to poke off one of the characters with only 2 cards in hand. We're going to send 5k at the Holy here. He's going to go ahead and just snap, let it die. It kind of gives me an idea of maybe what's in his hand. Maybe it's things that he cares about. And then I'm going to go ahead and play the Gravity Blade. Gravity Blade here is going to target both the Ohms, because those Ohms can become 6ks if my opponent goes down to 2 life, which if he decides to use Kalgara's ability next turn, that's going to happen anyways. Alright, passing back to my opponent. That Dofi blocker is going to potentially come in clutch later on here, as my hand is getting a little low here. Opponent's going to go ahead and activate leader effect, play out the 6 drop Kalgara. The 6k coming at lead right now. Likely what I'll do is just counter out of it. I do have a 2k in it, and I have another 2k in it, and then opponent's going to go ahead and swing 6k again. I'm more in line to just let that one come through, and then opponent's going to swing 6k again. I'm going to go ahead and just counter that with the 2k I got off life. And then opponent has 5 Dawn, which means they're going to play out a Nolan. Nolan's going to gain them 1 life because there's a Kalgara character and a specific leader type in play. So he basically did what I thought he was going to do a turn later, which kind of in a way punished myself for setting up my deck and requiring myself to either play the Gravity Blade the turn before or just miss out on the Jinbei play. Ultimately, I'm not upset that I did what I did, right? Yes, it is a little bit more of a bummer, but oh well. I took the window I could take, and then now this turn I'm going to be able to put a Jinbei into play, putting that 6-drop, likely that 6-drop Moria into play, and then using some Dawn here to do something else with. Just kind of thinking out my turn here. I want to stay aggressive towards controlling the board, but with me only at 2 life, with 1 blocker, and my hand starting to brick up a bit, I'm getting a little nervous. Going into this, it would have been nice to just rip another Gravity Blade, but I did know it was on my top 5, so I know there's no Gravity Blade coming anytime soon, so I have to get a little creative here. Likely we're going to go for a minimum swing with leader, try to take out some of the board here. With only 2 cards in hand, if I decide to send a 7k into a 5k body, he has to give up at least 2 cards to save it, which would be his whole hand, and I doubt he wants to do that, so 7k swing is pretty safe into one of his characters here. And I think right now it's just kind of controlling the board and trying to get him in a position where he can't go for lethal, right? Because his board is getting wide. His board is also getting tall. That Kalgara is an 8,000 power character, which would require at least 2 2Ks for me to get out of it here. We're gonna go ahead and attach 2. I meant to attach 2. We're gonna attach 2 there, and then likely what we're gonna do is just go ahead and swing 7. We could go Holy or Satori, depends if we want to hit a dog. All right, we're gonna go for the dog. We're gonna go ahead and reveal the top card of the library. It's going to be a Jinbei. Jinbei is going to put that Gecko Moria from my hand into play, and we're going to take out the Holy. My opponent deciding that 7k was not enough. He wanted to commit 2 cards to save at this point. And now I'm kind of sitting in this weird situation where I have 6 Dawn to work with. I could spend 4 of it to play the Moria, putting another 7 Warlords from my trash into my hand, so I could get a 2k back while also establishing a 5k body. Which would then leave me 2 Dawn to kind of just like, I could attach 2 to my blocker to swing, but at this point that blocker is purely on blocking duty for the rest of this game. So I have a lot of decisions. I could also just stack a bunch. I could stack 6 on Perona and just take out another one of his threats with my character, but that doesn't really build the board here, so we are thumbing 4 Dawn. We got the Perona. We're lifting her up. We're going to go for it. We're going to go for it here. All right, yeah, we're just going to go ahead and try to continue to clear board here. Save that Moria for another turn. We're going to go ahead and sit 8k at the Satori here, leaving my opponent now with 2 characters on board as well as a leader. This deck does run rush threats. There is 5-cost Ace in this deck, so that is something I have to think about here. But my opponent is at 3 life currently, so that means Ace would not have rush. Opponent, I think, reading the card there, for those that don't know, Kalgara's effect can happen if you're at 0 life, right? But you cannot activate his effect unless you put a Shindean card into play here. So you can't just use it to draw cards. Opponent's going to go ahead and swing, I think that was an 8k, and I took it, and then a 6k, and we're going to 2k out of it. My life is not very fruitful. I've got 2 1Ks in hand at this point. It is looking grim right now. Very curious what my opponent decides to do. I'm very curious why my opponent didn't decide to attach more to his characters here. He is at the full 10 Dawn. Opponent's going to go ahead and start swinging heavy here. This is going to be a 9k. 9k at Jinbei here. 9k Jinbei, I'm a happy boy. I will take that one. Jinbei's gone. I have a Moria in hand that can get the Jinbei back if I draw something. Opponent goes ahead and finds the Ace, but he's at this situation where he couldn't reduce his life down to 2. So Ace does not have rush here. So that was pretty nice. If Ace had rush, if he had something to put into play, I do think likely I would be out of the game here. Opponent is at 3 life with 2 cards in hand, and I am at 10 Dawn. I could slam down the Kaido, which is a play, right? But does it save me, right? And like ultimately, I could draw four 2Ks, right? That's like perfect scenario, draw 4 2Ks. So then I have 1K or, 8K plus 11. I'd have 11K in hand, but 11K with 1 life and a blocker. And if he just thunderbolts that blocker, then I'm like in a really, really bad position. That is not enough to counter out of most of those attacks. So I think this time I have to not rely on those, those Kaidos. I did say when I took them in a hand earlier that likely I wouldn't be playing the Kaidos this game anyways, because I just don't think Kalgara gives me a window to be able to do that. We're going to go ahead and just go 6K into the Kalgara here. Still debating if we want to play the Kaido out, and then we're going to instead decide that, hey, getting another block out is probably worthwhile here. We're going to see if we can set something up on the top of our deck here. Our top of the deck's looking pretty stinky. Not very good here. Yes, we've got the Weevil. The Weevil can draw us the 2K. We've got a Boa, and I think we're just going to set it on top like that. Unfortunately, I wanted to bottom deck that, but because the Weevil's on top, I'm fine with taking it. We're going to go ahead and send... we're going to leave 1 Don up here to play the Gecko to get a 2K back. We're going to send 6 into the Nolan. We're going to reveal a Weevil. It's going to come play and tap. Weevil's going to draw me a card. And then opponent pretty much tells me that they don't have a 1K in hand, a 2K in hand. So that's pretty nice after already getting a 2K in hand. We're going to go ahead and tap the 4 here, and we're going to play out the Moria replacing the Perona. Moria is going to just go through my yard here, try not to slap my hand holder, and we're going to just grab a 2K. We're going to grab, I think we're just going to grab the Mihawk here. And then now we're sitting with 2 2Ks in hand, a 1K, and then something in life, as well as 2 blockers on board. So effectively shutting my opponent off from a potential lethal this turn, unless he has an ace. But if you remember, I left him at 3 life, so he's still in this situation where he can't even ace me, unless he finds something to put into play off the top of his deck. And he does. He finds a Kalgara, or not a Kalgara, Wiper, I believe. Wiper's effect is moot because it requires you to bottom deck a stage. But he's going to go ahead and spend 6K. I'm going to 2K out of it here. So this puts him still in a situation where now he can play ace. And he finds another ace. All right. Ace comes into play tap, which means it's brushing. Because he is at that 2 life number here. I got 3 attacks I got to get through. I basically just have to show him countering out of one of them. Right. And we're just going to go ahead and... Or no, we're at the situation where, the blocker can just eat the other 2 hits. So I think we're just going to elect to... do we want to go to 0? I don't think so, because I might not be able to finish him next turn, and so I don't want to put myself in like a really awkward situation where my opponent can just stack a bunch of stuff on there. Opponent's just gonna swing 8K at Weevil. Yeah, that was 8K at Weevil. Deciding not to go for lethal anymore, and I ended up 2K 1King out of it, and then he decides to go the rest of it. So this is 11K, and I think 11K is going at lead here. I do think my opponent could have attached more to Kalgara if he was going to threaten my Weevil, which he did not do, because if he had just attached 1 Don, I wouldn't have been able to get that. The Weevil would have died, and it wouldn't have let me to be in this situation where my opponent has 1 card in hand and 2 life, so I can kind of math it out a little bit. So it goes ahead and takes the first one. We're going to instead just probably do some poking here. We're just gonna go 5K. He's gonna give me a 1K, and then now that makes my math really easy again, which means 7K lead again. And then now we can just slap the rest on my Doflamingo, unless my opponent saw something he could do here. I think he ended up ripping a Flame Split. Yeah, Flame Spit off the split, which we could rest a 4-drop. And then I slapped the camera to finish that game. So very, very close match. I ended up just pulling through, being able to save the Weevil, which allowed me to go for lethal there. I did have 1 more attacker I could attack with, but he just, would have just rested it potentially if I was going to go for it. But anyways, that was the game there. Again, pretty interesting matchup. I did see the Gravity Blade when I needed to see it. If I had another one, I think the game would have been even more over for my opponent. But that finishes this up. And if you enjoy this type of content, please subscribe, and also like the video to let me know that you enjoy Dofi gameplay, and maybe I'll make more Dofi gameplay for everybody. Anyways, thanks for watching, everybody.